What is up, everybody? I'm NoLexGiven, and today we're going to be taking a look at Rumpelstiltskin. And I actually feel a little bit bad because I don't feel like I've done a great job at covering Rumpelstiltskin on this channel. I only have like 2 or 3 videos on this hero, and I like it. I think it can be pretty strong, pretty cool, but I also think that players don't necessarily play it in the correct way. And we got off to a pretty interesting start in this one with an upgraded kitty cut purse on turn 2, which definitely gives this a pretty different feel to a typical Rumpelstiltskin game. But my main goal with Rumpelstiltskin is to use the spinning gold as soon as possible and really get an early advantage and kind of snowball from there. Now, we were playing up against Pup on that second turn of the game. That's a little bit unfortunate. I would have loved to have picked up some extra units on this turn, and there's a chance that I would have even used the spinning gold on this turn if we were able to slay. With a blind mouse in the shop and 12 gold, you can pick up the blind mouse and then you still have 10 gold to try to roll for some more copies of that card. And that's something that I've done a few times before to pretty good success, and I have showed that off on the channel before. But I just want to get people thinking about those kind of capacities to potentially use Rumpelstiltskin. And when I slay here and now have 7 gold on 3.0, I think I'm interested in using the spinning gold. It's a little bit tricky. We'll only have 14 gold to use for the turn, and we could potentially have sold off Cinderella to potentially buy 1 more unit, but I'm going to go for this, and we'll see what we can make happen. I do roll past those first Polywoggles, but then I wind up picking up these ones, and then go for the Genie's Wish. That's going to provide some nice what's the word I'm looking for? We're halfway done our Cinderella now. We're almost completed on the Cinderella. Sorry, total brain fart. Because the one thing there is we could have also picked up the Spellweaver before we went for the Genie's Wish, and that was definitely something to consider. Wind up thinking about picking up the Mummy and then ultimately just picking up this Good Witch, so that way the Kitty Cut Purse and the Ogre Princess can slay. Unfortunately, both of my Polywoggles don't slay, but it kind of works out because now I'm able to triple up on the Polywoggle on 3.1. So this will give us a much better sense of direction. The goal behind using that early spinning gold on Rumpelstiltskin is to be stronger for this stage of the game, which unfortunately I'm not really, and even the Kitty Cut Purse isn't that strong now that it's turned into a good animal. And I'm also going to turn this goat into a good animal just to complete the treasure on Cinderella, and then I'll pick up another goat, and I'm like, okay, this 3/4 is better than the 2/7 that we were just playing. But if we can slay with this Polywoggle right now, which we are able to do, we will definitely be able to turn some things around. And this is a really good combat for us. We slay with the Polywoggle, the Kitty Cut Purse, and the Ogre Princess, and we walk away with that from with an upgraded Hippocampus and a pretty nice board after that. So definitely, I mean, Hippocampus is a nice little build around me card. We can pick up a Princess Peep, and then we can pick up another Princess Peep. That'll help in terms of getting our Hippo a little bit bigger, and we're set up well for the Princess Peep with the Mad Mim and the Good Witch as our characters up here. I'm wondering, like, should I be considering another Ogre Princess? Ultimately just wind up going for the Earthquake here. And we've got a very eclectic group of treasures right now too, but we could potentially be making use of the Dragon's Nest starting next turn, so that's pretty cool. And then potentially building into this Hippocampus thing or doing something else interesting with this. Now, we are unfortunately going to get our Mummy owned there, or our Hippocampus rather owned by the Mummy. I will emote back at my opponent that I am not as pleased as they are. They wind up winning the combat because of that too, so really unfortunate. We also didn't grab any scaling on the Hippocampus, so I don't know. I'm not like super inclined to pick up Hippocampus. We tripled the baby root here, and Crown of Atlas is kind of a nice treasure with Hippocampus, so maybe we'll make something happen with it. But ultimately, I'm actually going to wind up kind of transitioning out of this rather quickly because, sorry, I thought that this spell was coming sooner, but here we have a True Love's Kiss. So I'm going to go ahead and True Love's Kiss on the Hippocampus. That gives me a Cupid, which could be enough to actually just start winning these combats. And upgraded Cupid just has a bunch of health, so a bunch of staying power, and then we also wind up selling off for a Feasting Dragon before the turn's up. So getting to make a little bit use of that Dragon's Nest as well looks nice. Now, we unfortunately are not going to be able to get the Slay, but we actually have a really strong board just thanks to these Princess P sheep here, so not a bad deal here either. And then I wind up finding another True Love's Kiss on 4.1, and that gives me the Great Pumpkin. So probably calling this video like Rumple Pumpkin or something like that because of this early pumpkin. So I'm gonna go ahead and lock onto the end now, and despite getting here in a very weird way, I think that we're very strong now. Obviously, we're not doing anything with this pumpkin just yet, so I go ahead and pick up this Vampire to add to the board, but we will be able to start doing some strong stuff with that next turn. We'll end probably on the Ogre Princess, then I'll just pick up any evil characters that I can find, and that'll be a nice little power spike for the Great Pumpkin. So feeling good about this one. Everybody's kind of middle of the pack. Everybody's on 20 something health other than the Horde Dragon on 1 and the Pup on 30, but like a very centralized health total all around. And yeah, it's just kind of a weird one in that capacity. But the pumpkin is honestly like kind of undervalued sometimes in terms of just how good of a character it is this early in the game. Sometimes you'll forget about it, and the fact that it's just a 2020 actually winds up being the only relevant thing about it here. But it's typically, and I've said this before, it's like a 2020 that spawns another 2020 just by itself. But we're able to add a little bit more to that even, because we get to pick up a Cupid this turn. We'll have to sell 4 things to do it, but I think we could sell these 4 things on the bench and be pretty happy about this board. It's a little bit awkward because we're playing all of our evil characters in the back line, but ultimately I still think that this is the strongest way to build this board. We want that Feasting Dragon getting in there, and then I realized we're playing up against Pup. So because of that, I actually want the Cupid to get in there first, and that also works out well because then we get to play a frontline evil character, which is pretty nice for us too. But maybe Feasting Dragon can start slaying, and this pumpkin can carry us. We'll see how far we can go. My opponent with a Medusa in the front line is a little bit awkward to get around, but Feasting Dragon does get a slay, both myself and my opponent. And then we've got this pumpkin, and I think this pumpkin is looking pretty good. It's able to take out the Romeo and then should be able to basically trade with the Tweedle here. Gives us another Cupid. The Medusa unfortunately took out our Cupid, so we weren't able to create another card from this combat, so that was a little bit awkward, and we do wind up losing, but let's add some more Cupids onto the board, and maybe that'll get us somewhere. And I also wind up finding another Feasting Dragon, so I'm going to sell out of one of my Princess Peeps to add another one to the board. Interesting fact about this game, I played this like at the very end of the previous season, so this game was actually played on Halloween, and a nice little pumpkin treat. I was actually hoping to put out a pumpkin video on Halloween, and I did wind up doing so from the cover to cover tournament, though because I put this one out on I played this game on Halloween, at that point I was like, okay, well, I can't get this out in time, so just wound up rocking with that cover to cover game. By the way, this combat MVP for the best soul tack I have ever seen, because our entire board is Cupids. And we just keep attacking into these 2 units that my opponent has behind Sultak. We even get another Cupid from this Great Pumpkin, and we're just unable to battle through this Sultak that totally blanks Cupid, because they've got to damage the characters that they want to turn there. But we'll add some more Cupids to this board nonetheless. Monkey's Paw, pretty good with the Great Pumpkin, so we'll pick that up. And then I'm also going to cut my other P just to add another Cupid to the board. And I'm not going to worry about another Feasting Dragon. We're pretty solidly into the evil comp at this point, so I'm not going to lock this. We're just going to look for some more evil characters once we hit 5.0 and see what we can do from there. But again, like nobody's doing really strong in this lobby. For whatever reason, everybody is just taking some damage here and there, and everybody's in the teens, more or less, with a few players slightly below that. So definitely an interesting lobby. It was on the quicker side, and that's nice that we already have like a really good character to potentially try to take over this lobby with, in the form of the Great Pumpkin. We will not crack the pumpkin, so we don't wind up dealing that much damage to Peter Pants, but then we get to pick up some nice evil characters here. And I'm doing the math. If we sell off 4 things, we can buy Cupid, Ashwood Elm, and the Rotten Applewood. So that's going to be our turn. I'll sell off all of this dragon shenanigans, and now we are definitely all Cupided out. Hopefully we don't have to play up against any more Sultaks. But otherwise, I think that we are pretty powerful, because now we're going to be spawning a bunch of evil characters, of course, with our pumpkin. Dragon takes out Cupid, Mummy takes out Cupid and Pumpkin and all of our trees, but we bring our board right back to it, and now we've got some monster books and again some more Cupids to try to take my opponent out. So good effort by the trophy hunter. They were able to slay with that Mummy, but we were able to create a bunch of evil characters right after that and quickly get back into it. A Rotten Applewood is a nice little scam card, so I pick it up, and then there's also a Medusa in this shop. Again, a nice little scam card. We are now at the point where it probably makes sense to just play 7 characters, and that's kind of an awkward part when you're playing the Monkey's Paw and you are trying to make scam strategies work, because while you want to give everything that you're summoning out of the pumpkin those bonus stats, you also want to play as many scam cards as possible, so that way you have the highest chance to scam your opponent. Now, having said that, next turn, we are actually looking to play a unit down, because we're going to pick up 2 more level 5 treasures and combine those units. So we will look to play a unit down next turn, but for right now, this is what we are going for. And yeah, we'll see if these trees can stop some of these friendly spirits from doing anything too crazy. Then we also Medusa, one of the friendly spirits. So pretty good, taking out most of my opponent's stuff on that one. And then Pumpkin should be able to clean it up from here and get us the win. But yeah, this is going to be a silly one. We'll pick up 2 more tier 5 treasures, a Cupid, and Ambrosia doesn't really do too much for us just yet until we find another pumpkin, but I'm going to wind up picking it up nonetheless. And then I also take a Dracula's Saber, replacing these jumping beans. So very silly board to end up on here. A Pigomorph, might as well lock onto that one. I'm not sure if I should have taken the Ambrosia, because I'm not sure how many more combats there's actually going to be, but if I were to find another pumpkin in the next turn or 2, then it would obviously be great to have access to another Ambrosia. And I do wonder if at that point, like, I don't know, I'm not using most of these treasures. We're just going off of the back of this upgraded pumpkin and all of this scam, but we'll see what that can do. Still really like the Cupids up against Pup, like I brought up earlier. That's going to let us take out some of my opponent's key support characters, which is nice. And then we also get to take out their Echowood pretty easily there. So here's what's in the pumpkin, and it looks like that will be enough to scam my opponent. And actually, just clean up a win right there. So really quick game with the Rumple pumpkin scamming, and I thought just a good example of a time where it really worked out to just use that spinning gold really early on in the game, which is something that you might not consider with Rumpelstiltskin. But basically, the sooner you start to try to grab an advantage, the more silly things that you can do, like Pollywoggle and then True Love's Kiss that all the way up to a golden pumpkin. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'm No Lex Given. Peace.